Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Metropolis Radio. Today we are once again talking about Star Trek 4, but today we are talking about the fact that not that the cast themselves were even surprised by the announcement. But before we go any deeper, guys, just remember that at least one of my videos every week will not be coming to the YouTube channel. It will only be going to my BitChute, Odyssey, and Rumble channels. So if you're watching this on YouTube and you have not followed me on at least one of those three alternative sites, the links to those are down in the description below. But anyway, guys, let's get into this article here from the Hollywood Reporter, aptly titled, "Why Paramount's Star Trek sequel reveals surprised its own stars." Sources say that most, if not all, rep teams for the franchise's primary talent were not aware that an announcement for another film was coming, much less that their clients would be touted as a part of the deal during a Wall Street event. Yeah, this gives me a lot of hope for Star Trek 4 going into it. On February 15th, Paramount, now Viacom CBS, announced that it would boldly go where it hasn't managed to go before, a fourth iteration in a stalled 21st century features strategy for the Star Trek franchise. During the Paramount Investor Day, producer J.J. Abrams, who rebooted the Sci-Fi franchise for the big screen back in 2009, revealed that the USS Enterprise was being ready for a new flight. Quote, "We are thrilled to say that we are hard at work on a new Star Trek film that will be shooting by the end of the year that will be featuring our original cast," Abrams says. The proclamation came as a surprise, not just to observers who have been watching the movie studio haltingly try to revive Trek on the big screen for years, but to the actors and their representatives as well. Sources tell The Hollywood Reporter that most, if not all, teams for the franchise's primary players, who include Chris Pine, Zachary Quinto, Simon Pegg, Carl Urban, Zoe Saldana, and Sean Cho, were not aware that an announcement for another film was coming, much less that their clients would be touted as part of the deal, and certainly not that their clients would be shooting a movie by year's end. Insiders say that Pine, who plays Captain Kirk, is the first to enter into early negotiations as he is the linchpin to the project. Well, no shit. I mean, how are you gonna do a Star Trek 4 without Captain Kirk? I mean, this is how Star Trek 4 died back in 2018, is when he basically just got up and walked away from the table, and there was no word on, Chris Hemsworth or Zachary Quinto at the time. And it's like, well, yeah. I mean, if you don't have Captain Kirk, then there's really no point in doing it. I mean, what are you gonna do? Recast him? Now the fourth movie into the franchise, it's gonna be too off-putting. If you wanted to recast Captain Kirk, you had to do that back with Star Trek Into Darkness, not whatever Star Trek 4 is gonna be called. The hope is to begin filming in the fall in order to make the December 22nd, 2023 theatrical release. The script is still being worked on according to sources, and there is no green light or budget in place. In fact, the budget will now likely have to account for talent deals that may be supersized. Well, no fucking shit. Industry insiders say that Paramount let go of negotiating leverage in order to have a key chess piece as it courts Wall Street investors. Star Trek, of course, has been a backbone of the company's streaming strategy. Live-action series Discovery and Picard, as well as adult animated series Lower Decks and Nickelodeon's Prodigy, are all cruising on warp speed, while the universe itself will continue to expand under the watchful eye of Alex Kurtzman, whose rich pact runs through 2026. But the feature strategy has come to a standstill. An initial plan for a fourth Star Trek fell back in 2018. Talks with stars Pine and Chris Hemsworth, who would have played Captain Kirk's father in a reprisal of his small role in the 2009 franchise starter, dissolved over money, with the studio and finance partner Skydance holding a tough line on the budget. At that time, Jim, and I'm going to mispronounce his name, I think it's Giannopoulos. Jim Giannopoulos was a scant year into his tenure as the head of the studio, which was still dealing with several big bombs at the box office and needing to reel in spending. The Star Trek franchise was one of those diminishing returns, with the third movie, Star Trek Beyond, grossing only $343 million worldwide on a budget of $190 million, the lowest box office receipts of the three films. Okay, so a little bit of context that they're not going into right here. Why the talks fell apart in 2018 due to money. People forget that, Chris Pine, Zachary Quinto, and Chris Hemsworth all signed on to do Star Trek 4 just before the release of Star Trek Beyond. And that was all done in a marketing scheme, and they got a sign-on bonus at the time. Well, then Star Trek Beyond came out, and it bombed. So if they wanted to do Star Trek 4, they had to slash the budget, which means you had to go back and renegotiate with Chris Pine, Chris Hemsworth, and Zachary Quinto because obviously you're going to lower the budget, you're going to have to lower their salary, and that's when Chris Pine allegedly just got up and walked away from the table entirely. And obviously we didn't know about Chris Hemsworth or Zachary Quinto at the time. Again, if you're not, if you can't say, you can't do a Star Trek movie without Captain Kirk. As they brought up earlier in this article, he's kind of the linchpin to Star Trek 4, and I'm just sitting here going, the studio had 3 Star Trek features in development, including ideas from, I thought I jumped ahead. I'm sorry. Including ideas from Quentin Tarantino and Noah Hawley that would feature different crews and timelines. And we did just do an entire video discussing Quentin Tarantino's Star Trek because recently his entire pitch was revealed. As then the Motion Picture Group president Emma Watts took account for the studio slate, Hawley's Star Trek was nixed. Tarantino's never materialized. The remaining holdover from this time was the 4th outing featuring the Abrams cast, which now has WandaVision director Max Shackman, or Shockman, however you pronounce it. Like I said, guys, I've never heard it pronounced, set to direct. Compared to 2018, when Star Trek 4 was last attempted, Paramount Pictures is now in a much different place. The studio has undergone an executive reshuffle with Brian Robbins at the helm. The movie studio is also being called upon to help supply a streaming service that is looking to build subscribership to between 65 and 75 million by 2024. Industry sources note that streaming growth has slowed domestically across the board, hence companies such as Netflix focusing so much on global content. Trek is a franchise that has the underlying goods, sci-fi storylines, diverse cast to travel around the globe. And see, I've been saying this since the beginning of 2022 right here. Where is it? That streaming growth has slowed domestically across the board. I don't remember which video in particular I said it in, but I said that these streaming services are going to have a very rude awakening come 2022. They had a couple of good years of growth, obviously due to the pandemic and everyone being locked in their house, but that wasn't gonna last forever. So how many of those subscribers are basically just gonna go bye-bye because either of the cost or the fact that there's just nothing really coming out on these streaming services that are piquing their interest. But I'm tangenting too far, and this is another video for another time. And what seemed expensive in 2018 is now, in a world where Netflix or Apple is making $30 million plus talent deals the norm. To reignite a flagging franchise during a company-wide reboot that puts an emphasis on investor-friendly streaming, it's a price that Paramount might be willing to pay. And as they brought up earlier in the article, and I do agree with them, is the fact that Paramount really kind of fucked the pooch here, kind of shot themselves in the foot when it comes to contract renegotiations, because now how many, Chris Pine, Zachary Quinto, John Cho, Simon Pegg, Zoe Saldana, Carl Urban. Why couldn't I think of Carl Urban? All I had to do was either think of like Judge Dredd or Chronicles of Riddick. But anyway, all those actors are now going to ask for more money, especially if this announcement was a genuine surprise. And then on top of that, you did market research to determine that there is an actual thirst for the Kelvin timeline, which we did report on in an earlier video about Star Trek 4. So there's an audience thirst for it. We didn't know this was coming. Yeah, Paramount, you better be willing to pay up. Otherwise, face Star Trek 4 being canceled again and face another embarrassment again. And guys, that's pretty much all I got for you today. If you stuck around this long, thanks so much for doing so. And if you've been following me long enough, you know I'm terrible at ending these videos. So I will just see you guys next time.